Hello and welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart and welcome to a short unboxing video, and today's focus is on Warlord Games Epic Waterloo release again. So the latest release is an Imperial Guard Cavalry bundle. You can buy the sets individually or you can buy it all as a bundle, which is what you see in front of you here. Now, as the packaging is all plain, we'll come back to this in a moment. I'll just take you over to the website and remind you all what you get in the bundle or what you can buy individually. And here we are on the Warlord Games website, and this is the entry for the bundle. I will briefly cover the individual costs of the boxes on their own in a moment, but the bundle essentially gives you the Empress Dragons of the Imperial Guard for free. So there's a nice little picture of all the things you get. So your Empress Dragons at the top there, then you got your Grenadiers, a Cheval, you got your Chasseurs, a Cheval, you got your Lancers, and you've got your Gendarmerie of the Elite, so all Imperial Guard regiments. And then you have 12 bases worth of 6-pounder horse artillery. And there we are with the confirmed bundle contents. So the models listed, and it includes the free set of Empress Dragons. And there we go. You can see them all individually on the website as well. So it's $17.50 for each of the sets of Imperial Guard, where you get 4 bases, and where you get 2 bases of the Gendarmes Elite Imperial Guard, it's £10. I'm not quite sure why it's not exactly half price for half the amount, but there you go. It is what it is. I'm guessing there's obviously the costs are more than just the cost of the miniatures, the packaging and all the other things that go into it as well. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm sure some people won't like that. And it's £10 for a battery of 6-pounder artillery. And I believe this £10 set on its own, you will just be getting 3 stands, because that's the standard amount. Yeah, 3 guns and 4 crew. So you're obviously getting that 4 times over in the bundle. So you make the saving basically on those Empress Guard that are free, which is obviously very, very clear and straightforward. We'll talk a little bit about the price of them and things at the end, because I know that will be the most contentious part, and I know that will be the part that that will probably get most dislikes on the video, because people do get very, very cross with Warlord Games and things about that. But I'm going to focus the first half of the video just on the miniatures themselves, for those of you that aren't interested in any of the price discussions, and I will cover it very briefly at the end of the video, because I know some people are interested too. So here we are, stuff out of the box. Now, first thing I noticed is the boxes are plain, rather than the kind of artwork you get on the plastic boxes, and the same on the commanders. I expected them to come in a similar kind of way, but that may well be down to them being late. So we'd all received, I believe we've all received it. Anyone that pre-ordered and received an email a couple of weeks ago just apologising and saying that they wouldn't hit the end of the month deadline, which they'd set themselves for the release. It was a pre-order and they aimed to get them out by the end of August, and that they would be slightly late. And it's only very, very slightly late now. These arrived for me on the 2nd, I think. I've been away over a weekend, and I've come back to the first thing to do this review. And I think that people got it on the 1st as well. So I think that the orders were shipping right towards the end of the month anyway, so I imagine they'll be turning up on people's doorsteps if they haven't already. And as by way of an extra apology, you may have seen in the opening shots of the video, there's another little note in there, and there's actually a couple of frames in there. There's French heavy cavalry and standard French infantry sprue as well. Just a nice little extra. I've got a lot of the stuff already, but it is, it's always nice. You can't complain when they give you a little extra like that, just to say thank you for being 2 or 3 days late, which is pretty good. So back to the packaging. Plain boxes doesn't bother me at all, absolutely, especially when you buy a bundle like that. You don't need the boxes and things. I hope there is proper packaging, especially for retail stores and things like that. They look nicer when they're on shelves in retail stores. It will please one person at least. When I posted my review of the commanders in one of the bigger Napoleon wargaming groups on Facebook, someone didn't like the packaging. They didn't like that there was a lot of effort had gone into the packaging. They seem to imply that companies that put effort into their packaging are hiding other things with that. Bizarre, hey. Internet, hey people, the internet. Anyway, let's back to the case in hand. So these are your plain boxes. You got your 4 boxes of the artillery, so 3 bases in each, so you give you your 12. So we'll have a closer look at one of those, and then you got each of the packets of the Guard Cavalry themselves. Right, let's have a closer look. So first up, let's take a little look at the horse artillery, 6-pounders. So this stuff is the soft resin as expected. It's the Sidecar stuff, the same as the commanders. I don't want to bang on too much about that, but I guess that's also is important as it's not popular with many war gamers, to be honest with you. The commanders are absolutely fine, and I'll repeat the problem, the perceived problem with it. I know not everyone will agree with this, is that the softer resin is hard to clean up. It's very hard to remove mold lines because you can't file the way you normally may do to smooth an area. It doesn't seem to ever really go smooth. It maintains its roughness and kind of flakes a little bit. So you're left with having to use a sharp blade, and sometimes you could damage the model, and they are soft. You can see me bending the end of the sponge there. Now, I don't mind it in limited amounts. I don't mind on the commanders when the cast is really clear and good and there's not much cleanup to do. There's no problem with them. When they start having very fine bits of detail like this, that's not likely to snap. There's a benefit there, but fine bits of detail like this that stick out a long way and become misshapen, or you've got large areas of flash that become hard to clean up, or there's areas that are tough to get to, then the cleanup process becomes very long and laborious. And if you like really nice clean miniatures and remove most of the mold lines, it can be a pain. I know a lot of high-end painters, when Games Workshop was using Finecast, which is somewhat similar to this. The competition painters just couldn't use the miniatures because they couldn't get them to a standard that was good enough for competition painting, because they'd have to remold and remodel loads of stuff with green stuff. That's not the case here. These are very much gaming miniatures for most of us, I imagine. But we do have to talk about in a review, we do have to talk about the material. Hard plastic would be better, of course. Some people will prefer metal to this. Now, I'm not a huge fan of metal miniatures. But metal versions of this would cost more, but they would produce miniatures that you could clean up easily. So it swings and roundabouts with it. But anyway, I'm not going to mention that for each box I open, but I wanted to cover it at the time. But I will talk a little bit about the condition of them and how easy they are to clean up. Now, the first thing I'll notice is they are very, very clean and crisp. So the detail is really, really good. Exactly what you'd expect. There is some flash. You can see flash between the legs here. Little bits on top of the Busby hats there, but it's not horrendous, but they will definitely take some clean up that you wouldn't have to do on a plastic miniature. And I don't mind cleaning up miniatures. It's when it's hard to clean because the stuff doesn't want to file. That's the problem, having to use a blade. And I suppose as much as they're not aimed at children, when you start needing a sharp blade to clean up miniatures and you can't do it with a file, you couldn't go, shouldn't be giving this to a 10-year-old, I should imagine. Definitely not unsupervised. I'm not saying, these miniatures should be given to 10-year-olds, but we want to get young people into the game, and we do have to consider that when we consider the materials that we make things in. But in a very expensive world at the moment, we're going to see more of this stuff. And hopefully, the more we see of it, the better companies get at using it, and the better mixers of resin, and the easier they become to clean up and work with. Overall, the miniatures are lovely. Aside from the material, the miniatures are absolutely fantastic. I like they match with the rest of the range. I like the poses. I like the faces. It's what's attracted me to the range the whole time. So no problems there with any of that for me. I do feel, as I say, that it's going to take a little bit more cleanup than other things would, but it's not horrendous. Actually, it's not horrendous. So next up, we have the Grenadiers of Cheval of the Imperial Guard. So we're on to the cavalry regiments now, and I really should open this bit before I start doing it on the camera, but you can see me fight with the box. Maybe you'll find it interesting. Right then, so we have standard cavalry bases again. That's some poor soul has had to trim off the base, and we have that little Diddy flag sheet that I mentioned, so that's pretty good as well. And then you have your horses themselves. So they don't come on a large spruce. They are pre-trimmed that way. But you're not going to be able to just glue them on the bases. I'm guessing they've trimmed them off the larger sprues. They cast them in so they fit in these smaller packets. So that does save us a bit of time, but you're going to need to get your blade in there, remove some of the bigger chunk supports in the middle there, the bigger gates and things. And work your way around the miniature and remove any of the flash. Now again, I'm not actually seeing anything that's scary. There are noticeable parts on the inside of legs and things, but over the course of the main miniature there's not a big mould line going down the face or anything like that, and at least nothing that really super stands out. So I think that anything you do remove will be mostly hidden under the miniature, at least on the example I'm holding in my hands here, and I'm looking at it not on the screen, so it's probably been going out of focus the whole time. I'll try and keep them closer to the table where I know it will be in focus. And again, same with this one there, that'll easily trim off, and because it's a buzz beat, you don't need it to be completely smooth at the top. They're not going to be horrendous actually at all, no more than cleaning up a lot of other miniatures, and I think it's easy to get caught up in the material and regarded as trash because people don't like the material. As I said, I'm not a fan of the material normally, but I'm not unhappy with these 2 boxes in. The amount of work required doesn't look like it's going to be beyond the point of it being useful. Definitely not like the worst examples of this material that I've seen with some other manufacturers and some other miniatures. So overall, pretty happy. Let's move on to the other set, otherwise this video will be extremely long. So onto the gendarmes d'élite of the Imperial Guard. Again, fighting with the box on the camera. And this is just the 2 stands, so your 2 bases here. No flags with this one. Let's have a little look. So these have obviously got quite bendy swords. So you can file that bit off the end. It's quite big anyway, so you'd need to snip it off. And the best way to do it is to get very, very close with a blade. Because filing afterwards is almost impossible. For a start, it's like filing spaghetti because it just moves all over the place. So you really want to lay it flat, get your blade in there, trim that off, and that's you done really. But if you've got a nice sharp scalpel blade, it's definitely the best way to approach it. So you've got some extra flash under the tail there, but again, it's not an area that I fear is going to cause major issues. I'm yet to find one big mould line down the front of a face, because that's where it's almost impossible to fix with these kind of miniatures. But the sculpts themselves are really pleasing, really, really nice. I'm not an expert on the Guard Cavalry, I'm afraid, so I'm not going to be able to spot, and I'm not looking for anything that's historically inaccurate. I'll leave that to any experts, and they want to add out in the comments, then please do. I'm just looking at them purely from a miniatures based point of view rather than an historical side. But I've not seen anything that kind of jumps out at me as odd. None of the horses look ridiculously out of proportion or anything like that, all too big or too small, and I think they're pretty cool. So Chasseurs à Cheval of the Imperial Guard. Again, let's make the awful mess of trying to open the box with the camera rolling. Here we go, we are free. So flag sheet again, your 4 bases, and a load of miniatures. Now there's a couple of different colours with this, and obviously you get different resin mixes, and sometimes you get a slightly different shade. I've done a little bit of casting my time, and I know that when I use grey resin, I used to have to add a colourant to make it grey, otherwise it was white. I don't know an awful lot more about it, so it might be do the different mixes on different days give you different things. It might be they've outsourced it, I'm not sure. But the actual result between the two looks the same. I can't really see any difference. They're both as flexible as others. So you got those bendy sword problems again. Again, sharp blade required, and definitely a slightly different approach. I don't know if Warlord Games have ever done it, but it might be nice for them to do, because they're doing more and more of this material, to actually do a little how-to when it comes to cleaning up different kinds of miniatures, whether it be metal or plastic or this resin, because I definitely think you need slightly different tools and a different approach to doing it with these. But again, the casts are really nice and crisp. I like these ones a lot. The faces and hand detail and things are fantastic. It's something that draws me to this range, and I haven't seen any massive bits of flash that are in the middle of the miniature that's going to cause anything scary. Now that's going to be a little bit harder, because that's quite a big bit of flash on that bendy sword, so that's not just a matter of slicing one way. Gonna have to get around it and maybe trim it with the clippers first and then a blade on the last bit. So there's just little things like that that are a little bit more tricky when they're bendy. It's what to be expected. Now onto the Empress Dragons, the Imperial Guard. Not getting any quicker opening these, am I? Oh, maybe. Okay, flag sheet again. 4 bases and more of the same. Okay, so he's got his sword down there. Just wondering how easy. So that picked off really easily there. Sculpt's really nice. And carry on being really nice and clean sculpts. It's just the little bit of flash to remove. That's these could have been a lot worse. I really could. I had some nightmare thoughts about how bad it would be to clean up whole regiments of cavalry in this stuff. I hope, I think I said this with the commanders, I hope that when these molds are a little bit older, that they're still coming out this well. Because if they are, I don't think we're going to have too many complaints about it. I think if we start, I don't know enough about Psycast, so maybe people who do know about this kind of soft resin and casting will be able to inform me, because I find it very interesting. I'd like to go and find out some more about it. But the bad examples I've seen from other manufacturers, I don't know if it's their poor practice or just because they don't change their molds enough or whatever it happens to be, but that mix of miscasting as well as the cleanup can be really horrendous. But honestly, people, if you want to buy these and your only concern is the material, I wouldn't let that put you off, because they are definitely workable. There is nothing here that I'd say that's impossible. Let's find the guy with the eagle. Nothing here that I would say that's impossible to work with. I think that the quality of the sculpts and the casting generally is really pretty good, and the flash and the mold line is minimal, and you will be able to clean it up. You're not going to ruin your miniatures with these. And finally, we have the Lancers of the Imperial Guard. Now, these would have the potential to be a bit more tricky if the Lancers were sculpted a long way from the body. So we've got flags again, bases again, but I don't think they'll be sculpted that way based on the plastic ones. So we do have, obviously, a bit of bendy Lancer at the back. I'm not sure any amount of hot water is going to make that sit level with the front. But it's minimal. But he is proper bendy, and there is a mold line either side of this, and that will be tricky to remove the mold line. You can trim the bit off the end, but to try and scrape a knife along something that's moving around like this will be harder, and that was always my fear with this kind of miniature. But the rest of it's pretty good. It's not like it's the same. There's no mold lines on the face. Nothing else that really stands out, so it'll just be a little bit of extra work at the back end of the lance, and I wonder if they'll all be like that. There's a lot of people that don't remove every mold line from the miniatures anyway, so I'm not sure that the mold lines are so bad that would upset those people. For someone who would generally file both sides of that if it was a plastic miniature, I still want to do that, but how easy that is, we will see when we get around to building and painting them. But I love the miniatures. I absolutely love the hats on these. These are really cool. They really stand out. So I'm a fan of the miniatures, definitely. I think there's some lovely sculpts here, really nicely detailed. Everything I would have expected. I understand why they're not in plastic in terms of cost. Some people won't agree with that, but I'm a fan. I think the sculpts are amazing. I think if we were talking about these being hard plastic, there wouldn't be too many complaints. But they're pretty good. Right then. I'm not going to, stick any more of these in front of the camera for now. You can look at pictures of them on the website and get a better idea of what they look like there. Hopefully these, me showing you a few close-ups has given you a good idea. Let's have a brief discussion about the cost. So now on to the contentious part, the talk about cost. I wanted to cover it rather than avoid it. I know I'm very positive about the Warlord Games releases for Epic, and that's because I genuinely like it, and I'm not necessarily needing any Imperial Guard cavalry for the projects I have planned coming up. My French army that I was building doesn't really need it, but I do love the idea of having a complete collection. But this wasn't an auto buy. This was the first thing I didn't just click pre-order on the day pre-orders went up. Some of that was for the reasons I said. I didn't really need it, but most of it was down to the cost as well. It did make me think, hang on, I don't need these, and that isn't cheap. This isn't a bundle where I'm getting hundreds and hundreds of plastic miniatures. Looking at prices now, I'm just going to talk about the full recommended retail price. So you're looking at $17.50 for your 4 stands of men. That's 88 pence a man on horseback. And then the guns work out at £3.33 for a gun and 4 crew. And then when you price up your gendarmes to elite Imperial Guard, the ones when you get 2 stands, their individual price goes up to £1 each, because that's £10 for that set. Now, how does that compare with the plastic boxes? So Warlord's own plastic boxes to start with. So $26.50 full recommended retail price, depending whether you get light or heavy. You got 55, I think, in the light box, 50 cavalry. So we'll work it on 50. About 50 plastic cavalry and 3 guns for that $26.50. So if you try and match that size of box using these soft plastic ones in their smaller sets. So if you had 50 of the Grenadiers de Cheval, for example, and 3 guns of the Imperial Guard all in one box, so the same number, it would add up to £54 to get the same number. So these new models are double the cost of the plastics. Now I expect them to be different cost from the plastics. Plastics are expensive to set up once you've done your tooling. They're much cheaper. So I understand a bit of a price increase there, but these do seem a little bit expensive. And I think maybe it's just the difference in price between them that really stands out, that gets people so wound up. Are they too expensive? I genuinely don't know. And I imagine a lot of people are shouting at the screen saying, yes, they are, not buying them, and blah, 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 blah. That's cool. That is fine. So I'm at risk of rambling a little bit here, but just to round off the price discussion, it's hard to compare these to other manufacturers because they're in this soft resin. And a lot of the other manufacturers that make miniatures in a similar scale that are metal, they make them in metal, which people would prefer and price a higher value on. But it's very easy, I think, to forget that these per miniature do compare with an awful lot of the 15mm miniatures are out there. Some will be more expensive, some will be less, and the quality is somewhere in the middle, so you kind of pay your money and get what you want. And there are alternatives out there. These are cavalry miniatures, so 15mm cavalry don't look out of place the same way as 15mm infantry do. So if you don't like these and the cost of these, there are alternatives for you, which is good. I just had a look, I know Peter Pig prices because I've bought some stuff from them recently, but I know they don't do Napoleonic cavalry, but their pack prices for all their miniatures is £4.10, and that would get you four cavalry, so that's £1.03 a cavalryman. I like Peter Pig stuff. They make nice miniatures. I personally, this is of course it's subjective, I prefer the style of these Warlord miniatures. Now I appreciate Peter Pigs are in metal, so maybe they'd be easy to clean up, so some of the criticisms of this goes the other way. But looking at comparing the prices when they're almost the same per horseman, per man on horse, would I buy these or Peter Pig? If they both did them in exactly the same scale, but Peter Pig did them in their style, and these Warlord ones did them in this style, I would choose the Warlord ones, and that's the thing to get back to. So you choose what you like and what you're happy with to go on the table. There are lots out there. Go and check out the minifigs, which are very, very similar range. You go and check out minifigs through Cavalier books in the UK. So I probably should mention their prices as well. That would be an even better comparison. So minifigs, which we know match very well. You've seen that through lots of people's comparisons on different websites and on Facebook and in videos that I've done. So minifigs, I think they're $4.35 for a pack of 4, and that's their guard ones as well. So the guard lancers would be $4.35 for a pack of 4. So that's rounding up, it's £1.09 per miniature. So there are alternatives out there that are almost exactly the same scale. These are the old 15s are much more like these. So if you don't like the material and you don't like the prices, absolutely go and buy them. You can buy them elsewhere. But if you price them individually, their prices are not as far off some of the alternatives that you'd have to buy if you wanted to field these miniatures and you didn't want to convert them from the plastics. Yes, they are double the price of their plastics, but that's because they're not plastics. Would it be brilliant if they were all in plastic like the rest? Yes, it really, really would be. And maybe in the future that will happen and you'll get some kind of mixed sprue, but then you'd only get a few on each, and people will then be annoyed about how many boxes you'd need to buy to field a regiment. I think they've probably done the best they could to match what they want to put out there and what suits the business needs. So make from that what you will. Maybe I've defended them a little bit too much. I've just tried to logically work through it. In my head, as I said, it wasn't an auto buy because it's not a cheap thing considering how much you get versus what you do with plastic. But when you really start thinking about it and you compare them to the alternatives, similar scale miniatures, alternative manufacturers, actually the individual prices of them is slightly cheaper than they are at minifigs and Peter Pigs. So there you are. Well, thanks very much for watching. Please do like the video if you have enjoyed it, regardless of whether or not you like the product or agree with everything I said. Remember that that like button or dislike button, which is the worst one, is only seen by me. It's not an Amazon review. It doesn't get back to Warlord Games. If you dislike what I've said and disagree with me, and you think it's a bad video, by all means whack the dislike, but remember, I'm just giving you my honest opinion on whether I like them or not. Anyway, do check out the other Warlord Games Epic Battles stuff on the channel. There's quite a bit, so if you have found this channel through this video, go and check out all my painting tutorials, my project vlogs, and reviews of all the other products that are out there. Also have a look around at the other things on the channel. There's some 15mm World War II now through Flames of War. There's American Civil War, which is also Epic Battles stuff from Warlord Games, and a few other smattering of bits as well. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.